Let's talk about Ring Magazine before we let you go.
See if I have
Obviously, you guys are still doing a beautiful thing. There we go. Yep.
Is that
That's
the
why I
latest
want to bring it
issue?
up.
This should be on sale. Right? Yeah, Game Changer. Some good stuff in here. Shakur Stevenson. We didn't even talk about Shakur.
I was going to go there next.
He emerged. Yeah, he's on here. So the article here, it's not even talking about him at junior lightweight. It's talking about him. It's talking to experts about how he would do against like the top 4 or 5 lightweights, like against Tank Davis, Ryan Garcia, Lomachenko, Devin Haney, Cambosos.
Why is Lopez out of the conversation?
Because he's going up to 140. I think his next fight's going to be.
But I think most of those guys are going to wind up at 140 at some point.
Yes,
I think.
But they can still make. Oh yeah. Devin's going there. Devin's going to be there soon. Ryan Garcia. Oh my God, what a frame! Yeah. He's got a middleweight frame. He's not he was a skinny kid. He's not a skinny kid anymore.
He got bigger.
He's not going to be at 135 much longer. Obviously,
he is huge, man. That dude is huge.
What a loaded, stacked amount of fighters between 135 and 140. But anyways, that being said, we want to know a little bit about the history of Ring Magazine. Briefly.
100 years old. That's what else is 100 years old?
How can you be brief on 100 years of history?
I mean, we've got some subscribers, right? People who have been subscribers to this magazine. I want to say there might be 1 or 2 who have subscribed to Ring Magazine for like 50 years.
Wow.
Like they're old. They're old dudes, man. Maybe since the 40s, even like late 40s. And it's like Ring Magazine is the only thing in existence that was around when they first started subscribing. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's it.
So no other magazine.
Is
there any magazines that are currently running today that are older than the Ring? Or is
like the New Yorker. I think that's been around since the 1800s.
But you guys are still in publication, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, how many sports publications? Are in print. I mean, there's the sporting news. The sporting news was around in the 1800s.
Yeah, I'm a collector of Ring Magazine,
but it's not. It's been digital for like more than 10 years now.
I'm a collector of Ring Magazine, and what I love is with the old editions is first of all the covers were amazing, the art, illustration were amazing, but the coupons in the back. Where you can like do like a mail-in for mail enhancement.
Yeah, they talk about like dick pills and shit. They don't call it that. They got to talk around it. They got to be real colorful with their language, but it's funny. It's like, God,
some of those advertisements were just they're almost like more interesting than anything else. To be honest.
Oh no! Listen, you could publish a book on like the advertisements from certain eras. Like. Sometimes, and same thing with comic books, old comic books. It's like, mail in for this instruction manual on this Kung Fu death touch. Kill a guy by touching him. I'm like, what? I don't want to do that. What the fuck? Tired of getting picked on? Like, touch a motherfucker and kill him. Yeah.
I don't know if you remember this issue.
Oh, yeah. That's probably like more than 10 years. That's probably like 2009.
2007 March.
Oh, 2007. Wow.
I think this is when it says Pac-Man's closing in on Pretty Boy. So Pretty Boy was still around.
Yep. It's weird. Pretty Boy was still around, and then he retired. He said he retired after beating Ricky Hatton in December of 2007. But all he did was just sit out 2008, and then he came back. He was supposed to come back in the May or summer of 2009, and he supposedly got like a rib injury in sparring, and there's like about 20 people who claim to have inflicted that injury or whatever, and that pushed back his comeback fight against Juan Manuel Marquez to September of 2009. But as soon as Mayweather came back and beat Marquez, and then Ricky Hatton got decapitated by Manny Pacquiao, then it was on that whole like, okay, who's number one? Who's really the pound for pound king?
That's when the 5 to 5 year whole
that's when the
started.
Right. I call it the never ending story. That whole thing started like, will they fight? Won't they fight? And the Cold War.
That knockout by Manny Pacquiao on Hatton was probably one of the most ridiculous knockouts of all time.
It's up there.
I was terrified. I thought Ricky was dead.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
I thought that for like about 10 seconds.
And then
oh my God, oh no.
The Marquez knockout of Pacquiao was pretty devastating also.
I was going to say,
I wasn't there for that.
Forget Marquez starching him in the fourth fight against Pacquiao. You know, he ain't gonna get up, Jim. He ain't gonna get up, Jim. He's not getting up, Jim. He's not getting up. Watching this, I'm like, what is going on?
Oh, I couldn't believe it, and I honestly thought that Pacquiao was closing in on the kill. I thought. Here's what I was thinking. Even though the fight was tit for tat and Pacquiao had been dropped earlier, I was thinking if Pacquiao doesn't knock him out in this round, the fight's going to be over in the next round because of cuts, because Marquez's face is literally gonna fall off.
Oh, he looked like shit. He was,
and then just like that, it's over.
Yeah,
and I thought Pacquiao was done. I was like, he's gonna retire. It's over.
It was at the last second too. Like literally, Marquez just timed that shot perfectly that it
Marquez
was kind of like Davis and Romero. You know, he just walked right into that shot. And it was, that was all she wrote. The only difference is Romero got up, Pacquiao was out cold. So
no, he was snoring.
Yeah,
people told me that were actually at the fight that he was snoring. He was asleep. Like I'm being serious, man.
So those memes were correct, where they had like a pillow.
Yeah, he was out.
That was accurate. Yeah.
So Bible of Boxing. How did the ring get that name? The Bible of Boxing.
I think my theory is that Nat Fleischer, who was a sports editor, and was a fan of the publications, which was a new thing, in the early, like the turn of the 20th century, right? Early 1900s, like sports a publication dedicated solely to sports. They were around. You had like the Police Gazette. It wasn't 100% sport. The Police Gazette was like, creepy cop news. You know what I mean? The police blotter, like murders and shit like that, like salacious shit, and baseball and boxing and maybe horse racing. And those were the only big time sports that were around, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the sporting news was just dedicated to baseball. And Fleischer admired that, like, wow, a publication that's just following one sport, America's sport, baseball. And the sporting news called itself the Bible of baseball. So I think when Fleischer, I don't know if he's ever admitted to this or whatever, when Fleischer started a boxing magazine, a publication dedicated to the sweet science, he said, hey, the Bible of boxing. It's got a ring to it.
It's a beautiful
story. That was in 1922.
Okay.
And the reason you couldn't have had a boxing magazine dedicated to the sport earlier than that is that boxing wasn't even legal in the state of New York until 1920. And in other places, in many states, it was illegal, just like mixed martial arts, right? Yeah, in the 90s, when it started up, and in the 2000s, there were a lot of jurisdictions that they were like,
a lot of those exhibition fights used to happen back then,
right? Because it didn't have weight. The regulation wasn't there, right?
Like those newspaper decisions, is that what they called them?
Right, or it was just underground. It was just unofficial. It was like it would happen at at sporting clubs or whatever, or outside of city limits, wherever cops couldn't bust you, right? It was a renegade sport. Let's just leave it
underground.
At that.
Yep.
Right. And just like
arts on the East Coast, they didn't want to allow that in New York.
No,
New
for
Jersey,
a long time.
time.
Right. So they needed, it was when the Fertittas bought the UFC and under the corporation of Zuffa, and they understood getting it regulated by the commission. And so they worked with the Nevada State Athletic Commission to, put forth rules that were, that would protect the safety of the fighters. So, you can't hit a guy in the neck. they took away elbows.
Mm-hmm.
They put in weight classes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they had all that kind of thing. You couldn't have a lightweight against a heavyweight, because you used to see that in the old UFC. You'd have like a 150-pound kickboxer against a sumo wrestler who was like 300
fight
pounds.
like 6 times at a night with like Nike sneakers on and sweatpants.
Yeah. So they were like, no, they're gonna have gum shields. They're gonna have their hands wrapped. We're gonna
make it
the
legit.
Whole thing. They worked with the commission, and so once they got it sanctioned in Nevada and California, that helped it, because they could do big fights. Those are big markets, right? Los Angeles or the Bay Area, San Antonio, right? And then of course Las Vegas, and then they also had New Jersey, right? So they could do Atlantic City and around there.
Prudential Center,
and eventually, I think New York held out for a long time, but they eventually got it. But then once you had those big states, the other states fell in line. The same thing with boxing, right? Boxing needed New York to the big city to say, okay, it's legal, and a law was passed in 1920, and at that same time, the previous year, 1919, a super exciting heavyweight champion was crowned, and that was Jack Dempsey. And Jack Dempsey wasn't just exciting; he drew a lot of attention, and he put butts in seats, and he had a great promoter in Tex Rickard, who was able to get $1 million gates, and who was like way ahead of his time, because he was filming that stuff, right? He was like filming that stuff when it's like, who's gonna watch this? He's like, he was a forward thinker like that, and so it was the right time for a boxing magazine to come into existence, because we had a heavyweight champion that everybody adored, and there was sort of a trickle down effect. You know what I mean? Dempsey's big, and then you start talking about who could challenge Dempsey. So other heavyweights, emerge, like a Gene Tunney or whatever, or the guy from Argentina, Luis Firpo, and they have a wild shootout where Dempsey gets knocked out of the ring and Firpo gets knocked down like 15 times or something like that. Everyone goes crazy about that kind of stuff, and just regular news outlets are buzzing about not just the heavyweight champion, but about boxing. And you have other guys underneath him, like Harry Greb or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So
it was absolutely huge.
Joe Gans and all these guys. So he's like, it's the time to put out a publication. And the amazing thing is, it literally was in publication from 1922 to 2022, which is like that's mind-boggling.